On this episode of The Entrepreneur's Journey, I'm joined by Mike Sullivan, CEO of the LOOMIS Agency, the powerhouse behind Ad Age's Small Agency of the Year. We dive deep into legacy and leadership, how to pass the torch at a 40-year-old firm without falling into the founder's trap. Plus, we unpack how LOOMIS sustains an award-winning culture and empowers career paths for the people who make it great. And what episode would be complete without a discussion on embracing AI? Last but not least, we'll unpack LOOMIS's EOS journey and how it's helped them stay vital, not just viable. You don't want to miss this one. Let's get on with the show.
We're the ones who dare to dream. We won't let anyone hold us back. We'll take the road, let's travel by and build our empire piece by piece. We've got our dreams and we've got a plan. We're not afraid to take a stand. We'll face the risks and embrace the fear, cause we know that success is near. There will be times when we'll fall down, but we'll get up and turn it around. We're entrepreneurs, we're not afraid to lose. We'll keep moving forward, we got nothing to prove.
Well, welcome to another episode of The Entrepreneur's Journey. I'm actually playing my Joseph Jaffe Is Not Famous music as well. So this is what happens when you are in limbo, in purgatory, torn between two talk shows. It's very alliterative. But this show is all about the hero that is the entrepreneur, the hero's journey, Joseph Campbell's hero's journey. And we as entrepreneurs are all heroes of our own journey. So Mike Sullivan is the founder. I'm going to give you a little bit of his bio in a moment, but he came across my path via the 4A's, which is the American Advertising Association of America's, of agencies, of advertising agencies of America, of the associations. All I know is there are many A's. I don't even know what what is an advertising agency anymore? Is it advertising? Is it more than that? Are we building brands? Are we building challenger brands? We're going to unpack it all along with his EOS journey shortly. But as I've been doing every single episode, I start off with my why statement. As a teacher, facilitator, and coach, I help high aspiring entrepreneurs, owners, and their leadership teams. Actually, when I said it that way, it made it sound like they were high. They might be high as well. It is the creative world. Get unstuck, return to growth, and become forever changed. Those words are very intentional, but when it comes to growth, this is ultimately my journey as an EOS implementer, really helping companies return to growth or just grow. We teach a concept called hitting the ceiling, and sometimes when you hit the ceiling, well, there are basically three things that can happen. One is crash and burn. You don't want that. The other one is you plateau. You don't quite break through. You just stagnate. You stay still. And you know what? When you stand still in today's day and age, especially with the rise of AOI, did I say AOI? AI. What is AOI? Is that like AOL for AI? Well, yeah, I mean, that's Freudian, I suppose, because these days, whatever we actually experience in AI is like AOL for AI, because it's going to become outdated soon. You see what I just did there, Mike? I had to do a little bit of a pivot as well. But enough of that word salad. If you want to actually figure out a little bit about this EOS journey, you actually can use one of those QR codes, or actually you can pretty much just listen to Mike, because he really is an amazing case study along the way in terms of success. And also, recognizing sometimes that there's a little bit of a contradiction between, you would think, the creative agency, all about the chaos, right? You have to live in this chaos to be a creative, and the need and the power of discipline and accountability and structure. What I've been doing lately is I've been sharing one quote. I know it's probably the first sign of narcissism when you start to quote yourself, but what the hell? It's my show and I can do it. I've been lucky enough to, have doing, I think, over 21, 22 episodes now of this new show. So here's a little collage montage of some of my quotes. Got caught in a little bit of a dance there. This is today's quote. I don't care how small the box is, just as long as I can operate freely inside it. And this to me captures the essence of what happens in a creative agency or creative industry when you realize that ultimately structure doesn't have to suffocate, structure can liberate. And that's what I'm going to be asking Mike about very shortly. But now let me give you a little bit of background of my guest. Mike Sullivan, CEO of the LOOMIS Agency, excels at elevating challenger brands with award-winning strategies, earning recognition like Ad Age's Small Agency of the Year and 18 Best Places to Work awards. Previously, he led Hadler, Sullivan, Ewing to consecutive Adweek Hottest Shop titles and served as president of an Omnicom agency. Hopefully he was liberated. Author of The Voice of the Underdog, Mike actively supports youth as a CASA volunteer or CASA volunteer and chairs Dallas's Conscious Capitalism chapter. Welcome to the show, Mr. Mike Sullivan.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. I love that lead up. I was thinking, gosh, who's this guest going to be? This is going to be a great show. And oh no, it turns out to be me. I'm going to have to match your energy. Yeah.
Me too. I was thinking, who's the host that's lucky enough to interview him? So I want to go straight to something that has nothing to do with anything. But I have a particular interest in conscious capitalism, in what I'm calling community capitalism, in what I'm provocatively referring to now as late stage or post capitalism. Where do you see the world as it stands, as it is, and where it's heading?
Wow, dude, let's start with a big question.
Yeah, exactly.
Joe. I love it. Where do we see
the world?
layup?
It's a layup, right?
Yeah, right on. Well, I'll tell you, I guess what I would say is that I'm drawn to concepts like conscious capitalism because I do think that it is time that we recognize that business it can be a real force for good, and it is a force for good. I'm a believer in capitalism, and I will say that. I mean, no economic system in the history of mankind has contributed more to humanity than capitalism. I mean, it's lifted more people out of poverty than any other system over the course of history. And there are problems with capitalism, obviously, self-dealing, regulatory capture. I don't have to enumerate all the challenges with capitalism, the disparity in wealth that's being created, all of that difficult stuff. With respect to conscious capitalism, it really gets you focused and tuned back into the good that business does. And, I think sometimes we get focused with respect to business on, well, what is the end output of business? Well, business is here to create a profit, but not merely create a profit. And it turns out that people don't get real excited about making, the C-suite richer or, driving shareholder return. That's just not very inspiring or invigorating. And so conscious capitalism conscious capitalism is all about attending to a higher purpose. What is it that we're serving ultimately? What are we trying to accomplish here? And you look at organizations like Chick-fil-A, REI, Patagonia. These are organizations that are tied to something bigger than just making a profit, and they're driven by conscious culture. They're driven by conscious leadership, and really importantly, the stakeholder model, where we're not trying to create win-lose outcomes, everything done in service of the shareholder. We're trying to create win-win-win-win outcomes. We're taking into account all of the stakeholders that have a vested interest in our success, and there's a real mutuality in that. We're taking good care of the business ecosystem, so we're not trying to beat down our vendors and our suppliers. We're trying to lift them up. We want them to enjoy a fair profit so that they're around, and we can all continue to prosper.
Yeah, and of course,
yeah.
I was going to say the CEO roundtable, and this feels like, I don't know, this maybe 10 years old already. So it's not even a new concept. Says that the primary function of an organization is not just to serve external shareholders, but all stakeholders. So we have that, that lens as well. That gives us a different sense. But let's bring it back to entrepreneurship and small and medium businesses. One of the things that is almost this incredible myth is that not only does money not necessarily motivate, but we all chase the payday, the sellout, the acquisition, the pot at the end of the rainbow. And when that happens, and we're lucky enough to get that, there is this massive void or emptiness the next day. And the entrepreneur is like, now what? What happens next? So there has to be more than just, money, money, money.
Absolutely. I think that's a great observation, Joe. And that is it. What's next? What now? It does create a huge void, I think, in people's lives when they are married to simply the pursuit. And this is something I think is, you can see the gray on my beard here. I'm actually thinking about sort of the end of my career. Okay, so well, what's next? Is my identity wrapped up in my business? Is my identity wrapped up in the idea of pursuit? At the end of the day, it's not very satisfying to simply cash a check and walk away. That there's plenty of literature and there's plenty of lore about just how sort of soul crushing that can be for an entrepreneur to just sort of be completely invested in their business, and then their business goes away, and then who are they? At the end of the day. So I think that's a big discussion. It's certainly one that's alive for me. And then that gets into, well, geez, how do you transition these businesses that you're building? What is sort of the ethic or the idea around that? When is the time to get out? Because then you can wind up in what we call the founder's trap, where it's like you stay too long. You ride it into the ground, and we've seen examples of that sort of thing.
This sounds like the story of my investments in crypto, by the way. When is the right time to get out?
Well, if we had that answer, we'd all be, in a different place for sure.
That is true. I've tried to implement the buy low, sell high, but it doesn't always quite work out that way. Maybe because of greed and cluelessness. But enough about large corporations. You can see, as I said, we'll have a little bit of fun here along the way. I could jump in. I'm going to jump back into EOS land for a moment, because when you talk about your identity being tied to the company and legacy and succession, and maybe we'll come back to that later, the two places in what we call, for those of you that are not familiar with EOS, we have this very powerful tool called the VTO, the Vision Traction Organizer. And so immediately I think about two things. One is core focus, which is the intersection between your passion, cause, and purpose, your why combined with your what, which is your niche, an inch wide, a mile deep. And then also your 10-year target or your core target, which is the number one thing that you want for your business. How did you how did that change over time? How did you set those and also reconcile, Mike, your own personal belief with ultimately the agencies?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, when I joined this company now almost 25 years ago, which is just hard to believe, it had been in business for about 15 years in a very small, in a much smaller way. It was a music studio. It was a production studio. So my partner Paul Loomis, he's the guy who discovered Vanilla Ice, Ice Ice Baby to the Extreme, and all that good stuff. Had a little studio off of I-35 over here in Dallas, and that's where it started. It was a little production studio, and he used that money that he made with the Vanilla Ice project to build a studio that is still in this building downstairs. It was at the time the nicest studio between here in LA and here in Nashville. And when he did that, all of his economics changed. So he went from paying like $2,000 a month in rent to $35,000 or $40,000 a month in rent. And he'll tell you, I mean, he panicked. You can't cover that with studio rentals. Certainly not back in the 90s, and absolutely not today. That whole business has changed. And I didn't know Paul, but I joined him, and we joke. I helped build an ad agency to support his music habit. And at any rate, the early days, our goal, Joe, was simply to stay in business. It was to survive. It was to make payroll. It was those sort of existential, questions and frettings. It's like, we just don't want to go out of business. We're trying to hustle as hard as we can to generate the income that we need to stay afloat. And, sort of a beautiful thing happened along the way. We started to build this really, I think, outstanding culture, leading with culture. And we can talk about culture in a minute and why I think that's just vitally important for building a long-term viable business. And then over the course of time, we were able to relax just a little bit. Now, by the way, there's ups and downs. This is not just a linear, straight up story. No story ever is. But over the course of time, we were able to step back a little bit. And instead of working frenetically in the business, I was able to work a little more on the business. And I actually started to work real hard on my own leadership development, which I think is critical for people who are running organizations to really be deliberate about that. And I tuned into, okay, now what is it that we're here to do in the world as an ad agency? And we built our differentiation around what we call challenger branding. And we really do stand for the challenger brand. And these are organizations and companies that have ambitions that, let's say, outstrip their marketing resources. So they have big eyes. They want to gobble up market share. But man, how do you take on the 800-pound category killer when you have a fraction of their budget? Well, we have real energy for that as an organization. That's what we're all about. Everybody, I say everybody, lots of people love to work for Brand A. They like to be associated with the big dogs and the blue chips and all that. And that's great. I was too at some point in my career earlier on. But what I really love is the creative energy that comes with solving a problem I loved your quote there as we opened up, inside a beautiful constraint. That just there's a way that you can really liberate, wonderfully creative ideas operating inside of what Adam Morgan actually wrote a book called The Beautiful Constraint. And so that really became kind of our rocket fuel. And we started, scooping up challenger brands. We've got a roster full of them today. We've done some great work for them. And we started recruiting in talent that had a real appetite for helping these challenger brands rise. And I'm telling you, there's nothing more exciting than seeing a small brand operating on a local level rise to regional prominence and then catch fire at a national level. That's just really exciting to be a part of those kinds of stories. And so, bottom line, that's it. Our vision, working with the Vision Traction Organizer, working with Mark Winters, who at the time was our EOS implementer, is to create impact on behalf of challenger brands. Doesn't sound, big and inspirational and crazy, but the way we language it, the way we talk about it internally, it's meaningful. And that was, I think, a game changer for us as well.
I actually, as you were talking, I really loved the concept of a beautiful constraint. and realizing that, this is, as you say, the structure that liberates as opposed to suffocates, because the corollary of that is this idea that we die not from starvation, but from indigestion. We die from too much noise, too many ideas, not enough singularity, focus, prioritization, and the constraint, the discipline that says your eyes can't be bigger than your stomach. You have to be able to prioritize. You have to sacrifice. You have to find opportunity costs. That forces us to actually operate in a manner that we can actually control the outcome, as opposed to, being overwhelmed with possibility.
I mean, that's absolutely the truth of it. My entire industry runs on something that we call the creative brief, and it's brief. So when we're trying to explain to a creative team what it is that we're trying to accomplish on behalf of a client, it's not just, well, hey, go have ideas, please. We need to sell more chicken sandwiches, or we need to, generate more page hits for a particular client. It's what we're trying to do is take everything that we know about a client and their situation and the opportunity. We're trying to connect it with, say, a consumer insight, and reduce that to just the bare bones essentials. And once our teams are well briefed, and there's a difference between briefing a team really well and otherwise, it's hard. I think probably the hardest thing to do is to come up with that brief, that constraint, and understand exactly how that's going to operate, and the output that it's going to create. But once you do that, it's amazing, what you can produce. But again, it's a lot easier to paint a canvas than it is to paint a field. So I think that's it's an essential tool in our industry for sure.
My friend Mitch Joel always says, "Be brief, be brilliant, be gone." And I mean, there's so many ways to like. Now my mind is just going. I would have written what's it? I would have written a shorter letter, but I didn't have the time.
Mark Twain.
Yeah. Yep, exactly. And so just something I even learned as a creator is that it's much harder to produce a 10-second piece of video than it is to produce a 10-minute. So, it's as simple
try
as that.
6 seconds now on YouTube, right? Yeah, the pre-roll. I mean, back in the day, we never would. I mean, I'm a man of a certain age here. So when I got into this business, it was, 30 seconds is absolutely the platform, and maybe longer. We used to do 60s, if you can believe that. But now 6 seconds, like if you had told us that back in, when I started my career, people would have looked at you like you had 3 eyes. But yeah, that's the time span, and the attention is just so, it's at such a premium nowadays. Our attention spans are just shrinking all the time. And by the way, we need to take very good care of our minds, because, I don't know about you, Joe, but it's harder nowadays for me to sit down and actually read a book. I love reading, but to actually sit down and read a book and get engrossed in the book, it seems like it takes more effort than it once did. And this is what we're competing for. It's an attention economy. As an agency, we are measured, by our clients by how well we are able to garner attention for their brands and for their products and services. So.
Yeah, I'm just smiling because my first book was called Life After the 30-Second Spot, which I wrote in 2004.
Wow.
So the writing was on the wall, and as you say, getting attention, keeping attention, it really, really is hard to do. I want to go back to what you just said, because there is a tool that you no doubt are familiar with called a clarity break, and it's one of the times when you get to what we use the phrase to protect your confidence. But earlier you spoke about a key phrase that, again, we use within EOS, which is the difference between being in the business and on the business. And I would love for you to just spend a moment or two to talk a little bit about what that actually is, because, you're talking to other founders out there and entrepreneurs that are in the weeds, that are putting out those fires. what does it mean to be in versus on the business, and how do you successfully make that transition?
Well, here's the thing, and it's a bit of a trap too, because we all love to be in the business. I mean, it's why we got in the business. I got into advertising because I love the business of advertising. So in the businesses, I'm taking calls from clients. I'm working on the creative. I'm working on briefs. I'm working on strategy. I am playing sideline to sideline all day long. I'm firefighting. I am in the business doing the thing, making the machine work. I am operating it. I'm essential. I'm important. This business can't live without me. If I'm not here, it's not going to work. That kind of thing, that sort of energy. And we're all familiar with it. By the way, we do this out of necessity at the beginning of our entrepreneurial lives, because if we don't, there's no one else to do it. And so we can get hung up that way. The challenge is that can actually become addictive. And it will also cause burnout long term, because ultimately what we need to do is we need to figure out how to get out of our own way so that we can back off and look at, okay, what am I trying to accomplish with this business? And one of the situations that most entrepreneurs will recognize is that, hey, I go out and I win a piece of business, I win a new account, and then I get buried in that account and I stop working on new business because I can't work on new business because the demands of the existing clients are too great. Oh no, I've lost a client. Oh no, I've got to start working on new business, but the sales cycle is so long, I've got to start that over. And you get caught in this loop. And so working on the business is about taking the time to step back, to reflect, to understand where you are, where you want to go, and how you're going to get there. And ultimately, it means, when you've got the capacity to do it, is to bring people in who can essentially replace you, in the business. I mean, that's I've finally done that, which is it's a wonderful place when you arrive there, but it's also a difficult transition to make, because we think that our value is all about being in the business, being the firefighter, running it on personal heroics, all that good stuff. But really, the ultimate value is delivered when we are out of the fray and we are guiding those who are actually running the business and running it well, and frankly, much better than I ever could, and providing some real vision, some vision clarity for where it is that we're going, what we're trying to accomplish. Because, it turns out when you start attracting these talented people into your organization, they really want to know, okay, now where's it going? And where am I going? And what's this all about? So I don't know, hopefully that's an adequate delineation between working in and on, but it couldn't be more important, Joe.
Hey, listen, I'm going to give you the first air horn as well. We've got some people hanging out on LinkedIn saying, "Preach, Mike," and Amanda says hi as well. The thing that struck me when you actually, and that was beautiful, is that one of the hardships of growth, it's almost the be careful what you wish for, is when we suddenly stop doing what we love. And why we started the business, and suddenly it feels like we're administrative and bureaucratic, and I don't know, TPC reports and management meetings and meetings about meetings to have other meetings. And so I think the thing that I took away is we always need to be connected. We always need to be at the rock face. It's actually really helpful to be able to still roll up your sleeves, get your hands dirty, and be closer to the thing that fed your life force. But then at some point there has to also, it's an and, right? Not an or. You have to be able to step back. Otherwise you just get sucked into the minutia.
It's really true. And here's the other thing too, and you touched on it earlier, you have to stay connected to an important why. I mean, I got into this business because I loved this business. As I've pulled back from the daily interaction, I've discovered something else I really love. And frankly, I think I love it more. And that's building a really great company, a really great place to work, and inviting these just super talented people in, watching their careers develop, watching them become way better at this than I ever was, and just creating an environment where they can flourish, become their best selves, have enjoyable lives, earn a good income, do work that is meaningful for them. I mean, build a best places to work culture and perpetuate that. And that is an ongoing, continual job. And I think that's a real secret sauce for companies. If you get your culture right, I mean, leaders are always worried about their competitors and how their competitors can attack them and that sort of thing. Your culture can really make you impervious to attack. I mean, your culture is the one truly unique thing that is irreplicable. You cannot take somebody else's culture and download it onto your company. And culture is what drives business performance, in my opinion, full stop. And I will tell you that my most important job is curating the culture around this organization and making sure that people are, frankly, having a good time at the end of the day. And they don't always have a good time, but as one of our team members said, hey, look, you're going to have a bad day at Loomis. That's just the truth of it. But at least you know that when you're having a bad day, you're surrounded by people who care that you're having a bad day.
I mean, you said it so beautifully. By the way, Lauren Law says, you two are a great pair. Are you ready to go on the road?
Yeah, Lauren is a former SMU cheerleader, so I always appreciate her adding her enthusiasm to a discussion, for sure.
So Mike, we can go on the road like Anderson Cooper and Andy Cohen.
Let's do it.
How about that? The Sullivan. I mean, the Ed Sullivan Theater is closing down now, so we're going to need the Mike Sullivan Theater too.
You're going to have to update your references, Joe. I don't know. This audience might not know Ed Sullivan. That goes back.
I'm timeless. I'm both past, present, and future all rolled into one. All right, you speak. Let's just riff a little bit more on culture. What don't other agency founders know, or just in general, founders in general, about the power of culture? I mean, we know that culture eats strategy for breakfast. We know that within EOS, we have something called core values, and your core values, who you are at the core, what you believe, how you behave, that is the DNA of the company. In EOS terminology, that is how you hire, you fire, you attract, you retain, you review, you incentivize, but also how you repel, and people ultimately self-select their way out. One thing I will teach is someone can be struggling in another company but flourish within Loomis, or someone can be a rock star elsewhere but could actually really, really wither and die within the Loomis culture. Why is that, and how important is it really?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to overstate the importance of culture. I mean, just think about the kind of experience you want to have in life. I mean, let's just start there with something that basic and that fundamental. Like, what kind of day do I want to have? Every day you get up, like, how do I want this day to go? Well, it turns out we spend so much time at work that our experience at work has a lot to do with that. And I can tell you that you've got a culture, you've got a company culture, whether you think you do or not, whether you are deliberate about it, whether you're intentional about it, or whether you're just letting it happen. You've got a culture. Just like everybody's got a personality, your company's got a culture. It's a collective. And here's the thing about culture. Sometimes we think, okay, well, let's develop, a list of values. What do we stand for? Which it's fundamentally a great idea. It's important. And let's write them all down. Let's put them on the wall. The challenge is you've got to live to those values now. What I think is really interesting about culture is that it's not so much about what's written and what's said. It's about what's done. And there's a great quote. I can't place it right now, but it goes something like, I can't hear what you're saying. Your behavior speaks too loudly. I used to tell my kids this all the time, and so they're tired of this quote. But this is the truth. I can't hear what you're saying. Your behavior speaks too loudly. And so much of what happens in culture is unwritten. And so we've got these values on the wall. To say a value is integrity. We always act with integrity. And yet we're doing things that are a little below the line. We're asking folks to kind of, push it here or push it there. You need to operate according to your values. We've got a little purpose book. I don't have a copy of it in front of me, but I'll hold it up at our quarterly blueprint meetings. And I'll explain that it's a target. Your culture, your values, if you've got it codified, it's a target. It's something that you're always aiming at. And sometimes you miss the target. And so organizationally, I hold it up and say, I need you to tell me when we're missing the target. That's just as important as when we're hitting the target, because we're constantly course correcting. It's something that we're creating all the time. And when you get it right, the right people show up for it. And so what you're trying to do is you're trying to invite people into the organization who want to co-create that culture with you. And it's not static. It's not one thing. It will change over time. But just like a personality, frankly, does change over time. We change as people over time. Our cultures change over time as well. But as long as you've got a target, if you've got a vision for what it is that you're trying to put into the world, you can stay the course, and you can invite more people in who want to help with that. And every once in a while, you get that wrong and someone shows up and they really don't want any part of it, and they glow in the dark. And like you said, Joe, they self-select out. They either self-select out or you have to deal with that. And that's an important thing too. You've got to make difficult decisions around all of these things. You can't say, hey, we've got a culture that really values mutual respect, and then allow people in the organization who are yelling and screaming and treating people with disrespect. Those two things don't go together, you know? So again, it's about behavior. It's about what we say, but it's more about what we do.
I'm going to have to give you another air horn. That was,
All right.
Now, again, the younger people may not understand this reference, but that was gold, Jerry, gold.
Yeah.
That was absolute gold. And, when you said target, I thought, is that a goal? But it's like literally like a bullseye target, and realizing sometimes we're going to hit the mark and sometimes we'll be off the mark, and understanding and recalibrating. I also love the analogy of glow in the dark, because when we talk about toxicity, right, a toxic culture, and then the last thing I really was like vociferously taking notes here is when you said you have a culture, and that's true. It just might suck, like there is culture. Maybe it's more like culture, like bacteria, but it's there. The question is it what you want and what you need, and is it true to yourself?
Yeah, 100%. You got to be deliberate. And by the way, culture starts at the top. It's an inside job. So you can't hire this out. You can't go get someone and say, okay, you be my culture king and I'm just going to do what I want to do. As a leader, you really need to walk the talk. And I mean, that's critically important. And this is something that I got really tuned into, years ago. I was really fortunate. I worked really hard. And by the time I was 28, I was already the president of an ad agency. And at that point in my life, leadership was more a title than it was a skill. And I was very much a command and control. I had obviously what I considered a winning formula. Look where I am, look what I'm doing. And it was an unconscious strategy. And I did some good, but I did some damage too. I mean, that does not work well long term. So one of the best things that I did was in my mid 30s is I dove into formal leadership development through a group here in Dallas called the Stagen Leadership Institute. I'm still involved with them. It was transformative, and it was really. When I graduated from it, was a year-long program. I said, this is really a personal development course masquerading as a leadership development course. And really, if I could say one thing about all of it, the entire experience reduces to one thing, and that is elevating your self-awareness. Without self-awareness, you are basically operating on autopilot, and your habit energy is driving you, and you have no idea where you're going or what you're doing. And more importantly, the wake that you're making, the impact that you're making. When you bring self-awareness into your life, when you learn how to do that and become more reflective and understand your blind spots and understand the energy and the impact that you're having, now you've got more options, and more options create greater pathways to success. And once you've got optionality, now you've got a real responsibility to bring the people with you along for the ride. And so that, I think, has been probably as transformational as anything in my own journey. I put other leaders through it. I think it's essential. I think we all give ourselves way too much credit for being good leaders without really sitting down and thinking about, well, how am I leading? How am I doing this? What is the the impact of my leadership. And so I would say that is another key ingredient to mix into the stew as we think about the kind of companies we're trying to build.
Better a stew than a primordial ooze. But look, I would give you another air horn, because that little soundbite. I mean, I'm Austin Kleon. I think he wrote "Steal Like an Artist." I'm stealing. I'm in full. No, I love these sound bites. Leadership. This recognition of leadership as a title versus a skill. A good mentor of mine, Rashad Tabakawala, someone that we all know in the space. He basically said org charts are zones of control. Whereas, and so I would add to that, which is the accountability chart, which of course is an EOS tool, is a zone of influence. So there's a zone of influence, right? Tom Peters says a leader's job is to create more leaders, as you say, to bring them along with you. So let's take a step back and let me ask you about the intersection of two paths. You can see there's a road or what looks like a road behind us. Let's talk about your entrepreneurial journey, Mike, and a couple of key milestones along the way. And then at what point you found or discovered EOS.
Okay. Well, I think like a lot of entrepreneurs, again, thriving off of the energy, the action, the adventure, and ultimately the chaos, really, that we were operating by. Now, those are early days, but there was really no consistency across our organization in terms of systems and processes and procedures. I will credit my partner, Julie Andrusik, for she's just got a great mind for process, for, I think, doing as well as she could under the circumstances. And I think we put in some pretty decent processes. And I thought, well, hey, we're actually moving along okay, and we seem to not make mistakes. That was a big sort of metric for us to look at. How many errors are we making? How many expensive errors are we making? And we took that rate way down. And again, largely based on Julie's capacity for putting in processes and that sort of thing. But what we weren't really doing was, looking ahead with any real sense of sort of deliberate intention to where we were going as an organization and how we were going to get there. And so, and I the course of my journey here, I've invited in a couple of other partners. And so now there's a total of 4 of us. Well, I invited my partner Josh in, along with his partner Dax, to help us really develop our digital practice 15 years ago. And he did a brilliant job. And we've got a fantastic digital group. I mean, Josh did everything I asked of him and more, but he's got a very different philosophy and a very different approach to running business than I do. And as we started to mature and we get bigger and we get larger, well, it creates some breakdowns, and so frankly, I've become a much more collaborative leader over the years than I once was. And frankly, that's how I've attracted people like Josh. But I didn't really have the tools, I'll be honest, to resolve that. And so we kept circling the problem and not really solving the problem. And so finally, and I had heard about EOS probably 10 years ago and honestly resisted it, all these years thinking, no, we got it. We don't need that. Finally, because I was having a challenge getting alignment for the direction of the firm among my partners, I thought I need to bring in somebody who's better at this than I am. I liken it to, I could put us all in a room and try and sort this out, but it's, the old adage, kind of trying to give yourself surgery. You can do it technically, but it's going to be messy and painful. And, I don't like that. So we brought in an implementer. I committed to running the EOS program. I thought, well, I'll give this a year and see how it goes. And that first 2-day deep dive, and you'll have to tell me, Joe, what that's called, but there's a name for it. It was
the focus day, the very first one, or
that's it. Yeah, the focus day, and for us, it was 2 days. It was hugely impactful for us. It really forced us to have the difficult conversations that I'd been avoiding, and it forced them to have it too. I didn't want to hurt feelings. God knows I didn't want to chase them off, and so I just was dancing around stuff that really needed to be addressed. And we came out of there with some real clarity. And using the EOS system, we were able to then begin to go down a path that ultimately we decided not to go down, but we needed to run down this path just to see if it would work, because it was an unexercised option that was on everybody's head. And that had tremendous value. And in doing that, it helped us clarify the direction that we are now going. And there's, like I said, the clarity around that, I can't tell you just sort of the personal relief that I have around it. I like there's a trajectory, there's a vision that all four of the partners share that we have cascaded through the organization. Everybody's on board. They understand what we're trying to do. And I never would have, I just really, you talk about imposter syndrome. I mean, I had it, and I have it sometimes still, but this really helped me resolve something that had been on my head for the better part of 5 or more years. So like, what are we going to do now? And I know what we're going to do now. And that is just a tremendous relief.
It's so interesting for me to hear you, because obviously I'm listening with 2 lenses, maybe 3. One is as someone who's having a conversation with you and actively listening to you. One is as an implementer myself, and one is as an agency guy. And and so for me, the most fascinating is the resistance, and why people resist. And I will come back to that, because I know you want to say something, but you said something that to me was such a key phrase: relief, right? The things when we ask founders or entrepreneurs what the number one benefit is of running on EOS, the answer is peace. It's peace and things like relief. It suddenly feels like, because it is lonely being us, it's lonely being an entrepreneur, in this, amidst all of this imposter syndrome and everyone coming to us for answers when we don't even know necessarily that they're the right ones. It's lonely when you don't have a team, when you have to sit on top of that throne or that mountain, that ivory tower by yourself. But you wanted to say something about resistance.
Well, yeah. I mean, first of all, I just want to give an amen to that. I mean, that is absolutely the truth. It is lonely, and it's difficult, and you want to make the right decisions, and you feel a great sense of responsibility for all these people who are looking to you to kind of get it right. The resistance, I think, first of all, I think there's this way we've always done things, and it seems to be good enough. And why do I need to bring in something else that I feel is just going to encumber us? We don't need more processes. I don't need this thing, an operating system. What's that? Why do I need to download that on top of everything we're already doing? And yeah, it is challenging to bring in something new. Ultimately, it's worth it. I would liken this to, before we were definitely flying a plane without instruments. I didn't necessarily know that. I didn't think that. And that works well when you're flying low to the ground, and you can see what's coming up. But when you start to gain some altitude, it can get sketchy for sure. And hindsight, it's hard, honestly, Joe, to explain why I resisted as much as I did, because it's so obviously something that we needed to do. It's just one of those odd things in life. I think it's a blind spot. I'll be honest with you. It's a leadership blind spot to think that, no, we've got this figured out. We don't need to look at that. There are other more important things to do. And so all I can say is I'm really glad that I got over that. And, my partner peers decided it was a good idea, and we all locked arms and jumped, because it really was really important for us. More important than all of our team members really understand. I think they understand that it was important. They can tell just by the way we talk about it and the fact that we're doing it, that it's important, but they couldn't possibly have a true line of sight into what it is that we were grappling with and how we were going to do this. And so, I don't know. I feel more responsible. I feel like a better leader having implemented it.
Listen, I'm doing it again. I just, it's just the gold. We've struck gold. This is like the gold
Yeah.
rush. Yeah, I mean, I jotted down founder head trash because that's what it is when you spoke about this idea of a blind spot. But it's a savior mentality too, right? I alone can fix this, and there is good and bad, right? The bad is the megalomaniac, the control freak, the tyrant, if you will, kind of
Mhm.
almost like the fascist leader. But then there's a you know th- but then there's just more of a vulnerability in terms of inability to let go and to trust. And so it's not all bad. In fact, it's a combination of good, bad, and ugly. But at the end of the day, it's the letting go and the trusting that creates, as we say, nature abhors a vacuum. And when you create that space and allow people to fill it, it's beautiful what can result.
100%. And let's just say, let's own this. I mean, letting go in every respect is the hardest thing to do for a human. Letting go. I mean, that is really difficult. And, the other thing is, not just for leaders, I think just for everybody, just letting go is hard to do. And what's underneath all of that is, again, you've got this 40-year-old company, where we've arrived at from a revenue standpoint, it puts us in the 0.5% of all companies. 1% of all startups achieve the level of revenue that we've gotten to. I'm really proud of that. And 1% of all agencies see their, I think it is their 40th birthday. So we're in a small group. And so now I'm thinking, how do I transition this in a way that takes absolute care of what's been built, not by me, but by many. And I don't even mean just the people who are here at the agency today. We've employed hundreds of people over the course of the lifetime of this agency. There is a real responsibility to transition it well, to take really good care of it. And like I said, I feel very comfortable with our plan, and that is 100% the result of putting it into the care of a structure like EOS to help us get to where we all needed to get.
Yeah, I mean, just listening to you, you need something that can ultimately be the bridge, right? This isn't a chasm as much as it is more of this idea of a transition, and you need something that has that consistency and reliability, and is proven.
Yeah.
Mike, one of the things that I completely forgot, I got so excited at the beginning. For some reason, I play around with AI a lot, and if you can't beat them, join them. And so I've turned every one of my guests into a superhero because, again, Joseph Campbell, right? Hero's journey. We're all heroes of our own journey. So your one was really easy, and I could not ignore your beautiful dome, and so I decided that you would be Professor Xavier.
Oh, I
Um,
love it. He's
so
better
so
looking than I am, but
that's you. That's your alter ego here. You've got the helmet, the cerebral, the tool ammunition, right? You got your tools. It's like your analogy. But I figured Professor Xavier in terms of, and it's a beautiful one because he has all the people that rely on him. The father figure, if you will. So this is AI's rendition of you as a superhero.
well, I'm flattered, Joseph. Like I said, I think he's a little better looking than I am, so I'll go with it.
Well, I also had a little bit more fun because I was asking, I was basically asking you about some fun facts about you, and then I got completely distracted. So, the first one was that you're a lifelong dirt bike enthusiast, and you won your class in the Texas Off-Road Racing Series. Another one was that you rode a motorcycle 3,000 miles from Victoria Falls to Cape Town. I'm from Cape Town, South Africa.
Yeah.
So that was cool. And then the last one, of course, which now makes absolute sense, is you're a certified meditation teacher. And so this probably explains the clarity breaks and the calm and the relief, and the working on the business versus in the business.
Absolutely. I'll tell you, I wish I had found my way to mindfulness a lot earlier in my life. It might have changed some outcomes for sure. But I'm glad I got there when I did. So that's a huge part of my life. It's a huge part of my daily practice. I just I don't know what I'd do without it, to be honest with you. And then, of course, motorcycles. I mean, we could do a whole nother podcast on dirt bikes and motorcycles and the great sport of motocross and supercross. So anybody out there who enjoys that sport, I'm your guy. It's provided me with, I mean, more memories, more fun, more adventure than I could possibly explain. Absolutely love it.
Well, listen, your book is called The Voice of the Underdog, How Challenger Brands Create Distinction by Thinking Culture First. And I guess LOOMIS Agency is probably a case study in of itself, right, in terms of being a challenger brand and being culture first. I'm going to give you an opportunity and we'll talk a little bit about that. But I would be remiss in our last few minutes if we didn't chat a little bit about AI, at least, because, you and I were discussing this earlier. Sam Altman just came out with his concerns. I'm like, dude, if you're concerned about it, then we're all in that primordial stew. We're all deep in it, and it ain't stew. It's kind of steaming, and we're all in it right now. So, it's even more pronounced for the ad agency business. Like, what the hell? Like, how do you not spend 93% of every day thinking about AI, let alone bring it to your clients?
Yeah, I'm not so sure I don't, to be honest with you, Joe. I love AI. I think it's really awesome. It is the most disruptive technology in the history of mankind, in my opinion. I think it's going to make the internet look like child's play in terms of disruption. We're just at the precipice of it. It is absolutely going to change fundamentally my industry. It's already doing it. We're working with it on a regular basis as an organization, as individuals, and as an organization. We're bringing it now into our processes. Ad agencies and SaaS companies are at the forefront of AI adoption. It's just the way we were. That was true at the turn of the last century when the internet was coming into its fruition. Computer services, obviously, companies and ad agencies kind of led the way there too. So, I mean, your guess is as good as mine is in terms of where it's going. But I will say that we're just getting there, and maybe we're a few years out from the point where the critical inflection point that's coming, when the machine can teach the machine, the recursive learning loop. At that point, it's going to be, who knows? And that's why I think Sam Altman and the others are like, yeah, we don't know, because honestly, they don't know. What I would say in the short term is that, yes, there's going to be a ton of disruption. I certainly think at the entry-level job market end of the spectrum, there's going to be a lot of disruption, because routine tasks, things that a lot of entry-level employees typically do, is easily done with AI. But what I would say, and this is something that Scott Galloway, NYU professor, host of the Pivot podcast, is fond of saying, and I think it's true, is that AI is not going to take your job. Somebody who knows how to use AI is going to take your job, I think, and let's just go with that for now. And what I would say is, man, learn all you can. It's a great tool. I love it. I use it on the daily for both personal and professional applications across the board.
I saw something the other day. I think I'm going to have to find it here on my phone, but a little bit of a where is it? It would be great if I just found it quickly. I'll find it in a second. But it's a little joke, and it basically is. I think it says something along the lines of a farmer is talking. Oh, here it is. Hold on. Let me see if I can. Just let me talk to my producer right now. And hold on a second. Turns out I'm just talking to myself. And unfortunately, I'm a little bit crazy in that regard. I'm going to see if I can find it. But I did find it. But it says, it's a farmer talking to a horse. And it says, you won't lose your job to a tractor, but to a horse who learns how to drive a tractor. So there you go.
There you go. There you go. Be a horse that learns how to drive a tractor.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm not sure if that's actually gonna help them. I want you to talk a little bit about the book, and just give you an opportunity to give it a little bit of a plug, and then talk about the agency in our last few moments that we have together.
Perfect. Well, first of all, with the book, I would not have written the book were it not for my dear friend, and he was a former executive creative director here at the agency, Michael Tuggle. But we collaborated on this book. We like I said, we love challenger brands. We love the energy that challenger brands bring to the fight. And it occurred to us over the course of working with so many different brands and watching just great brands ascend, that the real ingredient in challenger brands that makes all the difference is that culture, which we've already spent a ton of time on. That culture is the thing that drives brand performance. It's the reason Chick-fil-A can be such a standout in the QSR industry, in the QSR space. It's the reason, companies like REI do what they do. It's the reason Red Bull has done what it's done. It's that culture that drives that brand performance. And that's really what the book is all about. With respect to the agency, again, I'm really proud of it. We've got a collection of just super talented folks. I could never have imagined that I'd get the opportunity to work with the kind of people that I get to work with on a daily basis. First and foremost is human beings, just great human beings. And then just as talented and highly skilled professionals. And so we do a lot of work with restaurant clients. We've got some healthcare on our roster as well. We're really good at working with multi-unit distributed network type organizations. So think franchise organizations. Turns out that's a really difficult thing to manage. You've got to manage your corporate relationship and your franchisees. You got to keep everybody happy, and you gotta move in the right direction. And we've developed a real great capacity for that over the years. So, yeah, I'm proud of what we've accomplished, and it's been a wonderful collaborative effort.
Well, we have something else in common, which is I don't know if I told you this when we first chatted, but I started my career. I worked 5 years out of college for a QSR called Nando's Chicken Land in South Africa. So basically, if anybody likes most of my work in the marketing world, they can thank, or if they don't like it, they can curse at Nando's. But they ruined me. I have peri coursing through my veins. It was a hugely influential time, and they were the quintessential challenger brand.
I ate at a Nando's on that ride through Africa, Joe. So I know exactly what you're talking about.
I probably know exactly which ones you went to. And funnily enough, our mantra as part of the marketing group was for every R1 or $1 we spent, we had to get back 3 in value. And so that challenger mentality, it really, before the whole godforsaken, ROI and world set in, where we're looking at short-term metrics to longer term. I mean, that's another conversation we can have for another day. We just had it in our veins. It was part of our culture, accountability. So there you go. So Mike Sullivan, you are a scholar, a gentleman, and a yogi, and so much more. I'm looking forward to our roadshow. But thank you for sharing your insights and your reflections, your journey on the entrepreneur's journey.
It's been a real pleasure. Thank you, Joseph.
Anytime. And we'll be back very soon with another entrepreneur.
We're the ones who dare to dream. We won't let anyone hold us back. We'll take the road, let's travel by and build our empire piece by piece. We've got our dreams and we've got a plan. We're not afraid to take a stand. We'll face the risks and embrace the fear, cause we know that success is near. There will be times when we'll fall down, but we'll get up and turn it around. We're entrepreneurs, we're not afraid to lose. We'll keep moving forward, we got nothing to prove.